Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. Today we're going to go over how to infinitely stack your melodies. If you've ever wondered how orchestras can make these huge sounding pieces and arrangements, or how your favorite artists can really be super complex with their melodies, it's because it comes down to four sections. Okay, the four sections are your top line section. This is usually the highest frequencies in a song. Okay, so it's just the most memorable part of the song. Usually it's sung by the artist or played in a high frequency, high octave. Nextly, we have harmony. So harmony is your chords, and we're going to get into it in FL. You guys will get the project files for free if you go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. Harmony is all about notes that go together. So if I play this chord in a certain octave, it will create the glue for the song. You guys probably know as producers, if you have too much low end or too much high end, the track feels like empty in the middle. Harmony basically creates the middle of the song, so it feels filled out. So here's an example. Just an example of what harmony is. Okay, we'll draw it out in FL Studio so you guys don't have to memorize anything. And nextly, we have the contrast layer. This is usually the lowest frequency of your track, not all the time. Contrast just means it's different than the top line. So whatever the top line's doing, the contrast will do the opposite. So if we have okay, so the contrast is that the bottom notes were playing slow, the top notes are playing an arpeggio, playing a chord backwards. Lastly, we have rhythm. Rhythm does not always need to be a drum set. It can also be a synthetic rhythm. It could be rhythm with your MIDI notes. So this is rhythm. Okay, it doesn't always come from your drums. So those are the four pillars. And because we have four pillars, if you focus on a core concept per pillar, you can expand the song infinitely. Think about choirs, orchestras. How do they create these huge pieces? It's because they come down to these four pillars. So today we're going to write from scratch. Now that you understand the theory behind it, let's write from scratch. I have my chord chronos tied up to my FL. So here we are starting at what's called a root note, okay? And we're playing really low frequencies. So which category would this be in? We're playing really low frequencies, and most of the time, they're going to be opposite of the top line. So that's our contrast. We're playing a half step, which is one note above. If you guys ever wonder how to end your bass lines and end your stuff, in short, if you start at a note, like in this case C, and then you count down 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is called, the root note for the perfect fifth, if C were the perfect fifth of that note. In short, you're doing what's called intervallic resolution. I teach this stuff in my Music Theory Magic course at busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Magic. I had a lot of people ask me which courses to actually start with. For the foundation, you have to start with Music Theory Essentials. If you skip Music Theory Essentials, the other stuff will sound like Chinese. So Music Theory Essentials at busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Essentials. Then work your way into Music Theory Magic, which is at busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Magic, and then work into our new course called Melody Mastery, which is at busyworksbeats.com/Melody Mastery. It's hard to teach you counterpoint when you don't understand scale degrees and intervallic resolution and counter melodies and all this type of stuff when you don't understand the fundamentals. Okay, so that's why we're doing it. It's called intervallic resolution. Just letting you guys know the terms here. Okay, so now that we have our bass line, we're just using the half step, and then we're moving up to what's called the perfect fourth of C, which is resolving down 7 notes. We can copy the note C up in an octave, and now let's start building out chords. So for this dark tone, because the piano has a dark tone, we're probably going to start on a minor chord or a suspended chord. In short, the minor chord, I teach chord codes in Music Theory Essentials. That's why I said it's the foundational teaching. So here we have what's called the root note, or 0, the point of rest. Now we just need to count up our keyboard to finish out the chord code. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That always creates a minor chord. I have chord codes in the course and a chord code chart that you guys get. Okay, so that's called a minor chord. And we can also take that minor third, it's called, and pull it down a half step. So now the chord code is 0, 2, 7. And now it's a suspended chord. So we can cycle between those two chords to create movement here. And what I'll do here is also, I'll take this minor third, we'll raise it up an octave. Or we could just take all these notes and raise them up an octave. This is more of a soul kind of voicing. This is called chord voicing, which I cover in Music Theory Magic at busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Magic. A lot of people ask me why I say the website so much. People want me to give all the information for free on YouTube. As much as a pipe dream as that is, I try to give as much value as possible. But when it comes to me breaking down stuff step by step by step, that takes a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of focus. That's what our courses are for. It's not for like clickbait type stuff. It's for getting to the actual skill. So for that reason, we keep everything at busyworksbeats.com/premium. So anytime I let you guys know these websites, it's because that is my way of trying to get you to learn the actual concepts. The courses can be 30 hours sometimes. So I don't have that much time in a YouTube video. Now we're going to go to what's called the fifth, which is 7 notes up from the root note C. And now we just created a top line. So we took our harmony and now made a top line. Okay, so that's why I say most of these layers come from the harmony section. So all we have to do now is just, now that's the more advanced way to go about it. But before we start revoicing, let's just keep everything in this octave so you guys can visually start to comprehend. And now we went up the half step. So let's start here at the half step. Okay, so now we're going to take these notes, we're going to pull them up an octave. This is our top line, and we can also go an octave higher. I try to recommend that for the top line, it's at least 1 octave from the highest note. So in this case, if the highest note of our chord is G, we're going to at least start somewhere around G5. So in this case, the melody did not start there, so we're going to pull it up another octave. It's not a hard rule. It's just so the ear can distinguish the top line from the harmony section. Now we're going to make a more complex melody. I just want to show you guys the basics here. So now we need a rhythm. So the question is, do we want to go faster? Probably not. So in this case, the rhythm section is that top 3 note section. Contrast layer is the bottom section here. The harmony section is the middle section here. And then we have, again, the top line combined with the rhythm. But you technically could add a faster section. So let's add its faster section here just for demonstration purposes. Normally I wouldn't add a faster section, but. And let's make this an octave here. I'll just call out the intervals here. So we're playing an octave, C to C. Then we're going to play what's called the perfect fifth. And then we're going to play a sharp fifth, or, the technical term would be our, what is that? The minor sixth. Yeah, minor sixth. Okay, so it's just going to repeat. So we're going from root note, an octave higher or lower in this case. We're going to the perfect fifth. We're going to the minor sixth or the sharp fifth. We're going back to, now I teach all this again in Melody Mastery at busyworksbeats.com/Melody Mastery. Hopefully I remember to link all these courses below. But basically half steps want to resolve back down a half step. And then we have here 0, 1, 2, 3. So this is the minor third. Then we're going to the suspended second, back to the minor third, which I showed you guys we did in the actual chord progression. And now we can just copy and paste this over, raise it up a half step, and fix some of the intervals because now we're going out of key. So now we need to measure the intervals. Let's see if we can repeat that actually. Let me see if that clashes. So even though we're changing the bass, Yeah, I think we can keep the same top line rhythm. Okay, so let's identify all this. So it looks complex, but again, it comes down to 4 basic concepts. Firstly, we have our contrast layer, those low bass notes. Then we have the harmony section. This is going to fill out the middle frequencies. We raised the third to create what's called a top line, and we added an even higher top line, but it's also a rhythm section here to create movement. Let me show you guys a couple more buttons here. So you can go to your tools here. You can go to humanize. I really like this one for making stuff sound realistic. And then remove overlaps. You have to download that from the Image Line forums under piano roll scripts. It's going to cut off the end overlap so we don't continue the melody. Now it should sound a little more authentically human. And now the cool part is, now that you guys have that structure, which I'll give you all the project files for free, just go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. Let's just hit shift down to transpose the key. Now we're not in C minor anymore. Let's go to F minor, which is a Travis Scott scale, which this is the stuff I teach, is like how to sound like the artist. So this would be a Travis Scott type scale. So what happens if I change the actual sound? That's the music theory that makes something feel a certain way. But what if we change the sound? The sound is about brand association. When you guys hear marimba, you probably think Rugrats. If I play the dun-dun, you probably think Netflix. So certain sounds are associated with certain things due to marketing. So sound selection is not really about the notes on the screen. It's about how people's psychology works. But now let's just get into basic sounds. I'm just going to go through my keyboard just to pick random sounds here. If you struggle with sound selection, start with stringed instruments. Piano is a stringed instrument. Under the hood, you have long strings that get hit with a hammer. Every time you hit a key, it leverages a hammer, and the hammer hits the string. That's how you get the sound of a piano, a grand piano. Then you have guitar, stringed instrument. You have bass, violin. So those are stringed instruments. Let's swap out the sound here. Now this melody is very piano based. So any other instrument that doesn't really use the techniques of a piano, it might not sound as natural. And also too, we have to think about an instrument's real frequency range. Like I could sing, but I can't sing like Mariah Carey. So instruments are the same way. They have certain frequency ranges that you want to stay in to be realistic. Now this is more of like a Travis Scott type sound. Let's swap it out for one more sound. Okay, so that's sound selection. It's figuring out which sound sounds best for what's going on. Sound selection goes into harmonics of a sound association. It goes into like the transient shaping of a sound. That's more sound design. But I just wanted to show you guys the science of making really complex melodies. And again, I made a whole course dedicated to that problem for you guys, because you guys tell me you ask me all the time, you're like, how do you make these complex melodies? And it's simply these 4 layers, but you also have to know how to move through music theory. I know people down talk music theory like you don't need it. You could click and guess your way through music. That's definitely one way to do it. You could transcribe the notes in your head, but there's a high probability that the notes that you're picking, like especially building harmonies, you're not going to have the right combination or understand what's next. And that's usually the issue when it comes to people who don't have training in music theory. I'm not telling you guys you need to be Beethoven or Zaytoven. I'm just telling you guys need to understand that there's levels to music theory. And I used to write it off too, like it wasn't important, but it actually is pretty important. Because once you understand the patterns, you'll be like, oh, that's what they're doing. They're just doing the fifths and then the tonic, and you'll be able to move so much quicker. knowing what you're doing. Okay, so now that we have that melody, let's swap the sound back to a grand piano. And let's write some more melodies. So let's say we want to write a happier sounding melody here, or more, let's say, romantic sounding melody. Now we're going to get into jazz chords and seventh chords and different things. I'm going to move kind of quickly because there's a lot to explain. I teach all this though. Foundationally, because people ask me all the time, where did they start? Music Theory Essentials is where you guys must start in my training. That's for the foundation of all my courses, because you're going to learn scales, modes, modal interchange, chords. You're going to understand just how to voice scale degrees, intervallic resolution. We kind of move into in the next course, but you'll get a grasp of some of parts of that. And then what chords go together, how to create chord progressions, how to make melodies. It's hours and hours of training, but it's the foundation for everything I teach. And then there's beat magic, which we include in the Music Theory Essentials as well, which shows you guys the science of beat making. It's one thing to know which piano notes to use. It's a different thing to make a whole beat and like arrange a beat. So that's all combined in what's called the Music Theory Essentials at busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Essentials. The next level, which is for people who are trying to move into like new jazz, neo soul, R&B, anything that's chord based. Music Theory Magic is that course, because it goes into really complex stuff like 2-5-1, secondary dominant, substitution chords, how to properly use augmented and diminished chords. It goes into the science, and it also goes way deeper, which I don't promote enough, is it tells you why you would use the F minor scale. Like if you guys didn't know, Travis Scott used on Utopia a lot of F minor and E minor. F minor, for example, creates a rebellious energy in the music. And listen to Utopia. He's a very rebellious audience. So there's certain scales and modes that you use to create and generate a specific mood. And they start with that knowing first before they pick a scale. Okay. And it might be even subconscious. Okay. So moving forward though, let's create some R&B. Now I'm going to move really, really fast here. Okay. Because explaining all this could take hours. Okay. We're going to create what's called a 2-5-1. For those who watch me a lot, you've already know what this is. But we're only going to use seventh chords here because we're going to revoice this. So a 2-5-1 is the second scale degree, the fifth scale degree, and then the tonic. That sounds like a lot, but when you guys take the courses, it'll make way more sense. Let me turn the piano volume back. Okay, so now we have what's called a D minor seventh chord and G dominant seventh chord, and then we're going to move into what's called the tonic. I teach this a lot, but music usually wants to move from the dominant chord to the tonic. It's called dominant because it draws the ear the most to go back to the home space, which is in this case is C. Now this voicing is bland. Okay, so let's take this further. I just came up with an idea. Let's do both dominant seventh and then let's do major seventh just to see what this sounds like. Now, let's do F. The reason I'm doing F, let me just do it here. One thing about a chord is it's identified by its third and the seventh. So if we change the third and the seventh of a chord, it changes the chord's identity. Because a minor third and a major third are one note away. Let's see what this sounds like though. I'll just do the regular voicing, which is F major. And then let's do, this chord is going to be an interesting chord because if I were to draw it out using scale degrees, it would be diminished at the bottom here. So the chord code would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we would be 8, 9, 10, 11. So that's a major seventh over a diminished chord. It's going to give you a very not pleasing tone. Now that sounded really good actually. And it's only because of that seven. Diminished chords by themselves very rarely sound good. Okay, so the only note I'm listening to in my brain is that top note. And I do teach how to build chords knowing nothing about music theory. I show you guys how to reverse engineer chords. It's all in Music Theory Essentials. So So we're using seventh chords here to create like a jazz tone. Boom. Then we'll come back down to, let's do a bigger chord here. Let's try. Now my ear wants to hear A. So now I'm asking myself what chord. Wait, I'm missing a bar here. Hold on, we should be at A bars 1. And then we'll revoice these chords so they don't sound so vanilla sounding. Okay, I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a 2-5-1 here. So if E is the second scale degree, let's transpose this. Now we're getting kind of advanced. We're not kind of, we're really advanced. So I'm gonna transpose it so that this chord is D so that we can understand where we are. Let's use a dominant ninth. We're gonna what's called raise, create an altered chord. That's also what I teach in Music Theory Magic, how to make altered chords and substitutions. And we're gonna move up. So that'd be G in that case, and then we'll bring this back down to C. But then we'll transpose it back so that we don't have to memorize a whole new scale. All right, then we're gonna pull this back to where D was. Okay, this should metaphorically or theoretically sound proper. Let's just see what it sounds like though. Then we'll revoice this. Okay, so for my ear, this is a little too far up. So we'll do what's called a substitution. Pull that down just so it's not so far away. Okay, so now I'm gonna move quick and we're gonna start revoicing these chords. Okay, let's go all the way back to the beginning. And one technique I like to try for R&B is to raise what's called the third, which is usually the second note of a chord. And we're going to take this bottom note, duplicate it, pull it down an octave. I even like 2 octaves. See how it sounds full? So for this note, I think in order for that to fit, I'm giving you guys little tips here and there, but basically if chords feel like they're going up, they're going to feel like they're happy. If they feel like they're going down, they're going to feel like they're sad. So if without me having that ninth, this first chord would have been perceived as going upward because the next note is higher. That's not the vibe we want to create. So let's add that ninth in here. Okay, I also want to try ending at A. I forgot. Yeah, we're in. Let's do this. And we're going to build the minor chord from B instead. Okay, let's go back. My ear wants to hear E. So what I'm doing here is called revoicing because my ear wants to hear certain tones, but it also wants to fit a certain chord progression. So instead of moving the chords and making them different, I ask, is the note that I hear in my head in the chord? If so, can I move it to the proper octave? Probably change the ending here because it's a little too happy sounding. Also too, we don't have the same elements, so let's add those bass elements. Do this. Now I think the E is a little too happy sounding by going up. Okay, so now we have two sections. We have the contrast layer, which is these low frequencies. We have the harmony section, which is the chord structure. And again, we could transpose this to different keys. All right, so we have two of those four things. We have contrast, harmony. Now let's add the top line. And then we also have the rhythm section. So the top line, in this case, to make it sound more fitting, we're going to make the top line also the rhythm section. I'm going to use a couple terms here. We're going to use some neighboring chords here, or neighboring tones here. And then let's use what's called an approaching tone. And that teaches in melody mastery. Now, for the genre purposes, we're going to duplicate this, pull it down an octave. So see how the top line correlates heavily with the harmony. And everybody, the biggest mistake I see people make with melodies is they think melody's its own thing. Melody comes from harmony. Now here I might add two notes here. I like that dun, but I want to hear dun, dun. This might clash with the chord though. Now to my ear, it sounds good. Dun, dun. Here we're using what's called chromaticism. And again, I break all this down in the new course called Melody Mastery. Also, this could be technically called a neighboring tone. Now that was too low, so let's pull it up an octave. That's why I said once the top line starts blending in with the chords, it's hard to distinguish what's the chord and what's the top line. So that E was too low. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so that's a half step. I forgot we changed that chord. I might change the chord just to fit that top line, because the top line, I like where it's going. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so let's try to use the top line as a hint as to where the chord... Now we're going to change where the chord is going. That end chord sounds cool, but this starting section, it goes dun. So that D sharp is really emphasized here. I want that note to be somehow an F. So let's just transpose. Now we're taking it away from the 2-5-1 here. But that sounds way more powerful to my ear. Okay, so we're going from the fourth. So we're not using the 2-5-1, we're using the 4 in this case. Or the fourth from B, I should say. That feels better, like rhythmically. Okay, so let me start highlighting this. So this looks really complex. Like as a beginner, you're like, what is going on? If you just saw this and I opened the video like, hey guys, here's how you create this melody, you would be like, what is he doing? There's so many notes. To guess your way through that I mean, you could technically, theoretically, you could guess your way through that. In practice, though, you know, the times I've tried to guess which notes, I didn't even have a starting point. You know, that's when I would get stuck all the time because I didn't understand why I was being stuck or how to get unstuck. So this is a happier melody. Let's humanize this a little bit. And a strong ending at the end to where it doesn't sound like cheesy. Okay, so now what we are going to do is play the melodies that we created. This video is kind of long, so let's add this in here. But again, it comes down to those 4 sections. Before we play the melodies though, we have the top line. We were using a lot of tools from the Melody Mastery. We were using octaves, approaching notes. We were using chromaticism. We were using neighboring tones. We were using intervals here. It's a little hard to see the notes. Yeah, here we were playing a chord basically, which is a minor chord. So understanding that melody comes from harmony is the #1 message I want to keep drilling into you guys' head, because it does. Melody doesn't have context without harmony most of the time. Okay, so if you want to learn that, I have a new melody course at busyworksbeats.com/melody mastery. I'll leave a link below, but you guys have to start with the music theory essentials. Go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory essentials. Start with the foundational stuff. I know everybody wants to skip it, but you can't really understand what I'm doing in Melody Mastery if you skip all the beginner stuff. So Melody Mastery is more advanced. Okay, so here we have the top line. This section here is our harmony section. And then down here is our contrast layer. And the top line's also creating a rhythm to some degree. All right, now let's hear both these melodies back to back. Same instrument, 2 different keys, 2 different scales. All right, so you guys can learn a lot more. Go to busyworksbeats.com/melody magic. Not melody magic. I keep saying melody magic. That's part of Music Theory Essentials. Go to busyworksbeats.com/melody mastery. That's the new course, which has all the new techniques. And again, start with Music Theory Essentials. Work your way up to Music Theory Magic, then go to Melody Mastery. Okay, because if you guys try to jump too far as a beginner, you're going to get frustrated. All right, guys, go to busyworksbeats.com/melody mastery. Peace out, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Like this video, share with a friend. Peace.